Hello, everybody. This is draft day. This is Christmas. This is a special weekend in a town that I will forever love since I was born in Pittsburgh. This is the NFL draft. And everybody that's on any level of this industry, I don't care if you work for a team, if you're a coach, if you're on the fringe, if you're a fantasy owner, this is a great day. It's a great day. It's a chance to get better. It's a chance to improve your team and maybe get over the hump. I'll give you one example. In 2017, Sean Payton, the New Orleans Saints, just finished 3 straight seasons of 7-9. 3 straight seasons. And they had a monster draft that included Alvin Kamara, that included Marshawn Lattimore, and they turned their season and career around, and went and won the division. 1 year. It can happen in 1 year. I'm coming here in the green room of the NFL Network in Los Angeles. I am suited and booted, ready to go on air here at 10 o'clock Western, 1 o'clock Eastern time here today to kind of get everybody ready. I'll be with Mike Garafalo and Steve Weish. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit. We're going to talk about the NFC South, but I want to kind of give you a little bit of the lay of the land here because everybody's had their mock drafts. Those are over. Those are finished. Everybody's combed them, including the teams. They all watch this stuff. And so I think this is going to be a pretty heavy offensive draft. Over at the top of the draft, we're going to see a lot of defensive players go. But I think overall it's going to be an offensive draft. You're going to see a lot of wide receivers taken and a lot of offensive linemen taken. Maybe as many as 7 offensive linemen, maybe as many as 6, wide receivers. Obviously, at least 1 quarterback in Mendoza. I believe a team's going to trade back into the first round to take Ty Simpson. So that's kind of the overture. But there's one, after Mendoza, there's one great star player in my mind, and that's Jeremiah Love. And he's like Saquon coming out. He's like Bijan coming out. But he's got to go to the right place. I don't think he can just go to a bad team like Ashton Genty, who I still think is going to be a very good player. It can't be like Ashton Genty going to the Raiders. That was just a mess from an organization standpoint, a mess from a talent standpoint, a mess from Chip Kelly being the offensive coordinator. It was just a mess. And it was just not fair to Ashton Genty. He had one really good game a year ago. But I believe Jeremiah Love can be everything that Saquon was as a rookie early in his career in New York, what he was 2 years ago with the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was the de facto MVP of the league, running for over 2,000 yards and taking the Eagles all the way to a Super Bowl victory. I believe Jeremiah Love is that type of person and that type of player. So, like, if you look at what I think the draft is going to look like, Mendoza 1, David Bailey 2 to Texas Tech. I believe he's the best edge force in this business. And I think it's a position of need, big need. If you think about Aaron Glenn coming from Pittsburgh, coming from Detroit, they had Aiden Hutchinson. They could never find an end opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. And it was a big part of their failures the last 2 years. Of course, Hutch got hurt too 1 year. So, but they could never find that end opposite. You've got to have 2. You got to have a guy feeding another guy. If you look at Robert Mathis, and Dwight Freeney in Indianapolis and those defensive teams, if you look at the Jets right now, they've got one legitimate edge rusher in Will McDonald, and he's pretty good, and he's been getting better. But they need a guy opposite him. I think Bailey is that guy. And so the Arizona Cardinals are sitting there at 3. And they have a lot of holes. They have a lot of holes in that team, obviously. They lost 11 in a row. They got a new coach. The GM is on the hot seat. He stayed. All right. Defense coordinator on the hot seat. He stayed. This has not looked good. I think taking Jeremiah Love there would make sense, but I don't think it turns them around because they're not, the offensive line isn't complete. I think if they traded back to 7 or to 8, they could still get a frontline offensive lineman. They would get extra picks because they only have 7 picks. They only have the guys, 1 through 7, 1 pick in each round. They need extra picks. And there's a lot of guys that are bunched between 15 and 50 in this draft. that you could look at all the mock drafts and you could just see some of these guys, second round, first round, bottom of the first round, top of the second round. They're bunched and cluttered together. So sometimes you just need extra chips. So I think Jeremiah Love, there's going to be a team that is going to trade for him. And I don't know the team right now, but I believe somebody's going to jump up and help Arizona. Because if you want to trade down, and I think, Monty Ossenford, I believe Monty wants to trade down. But you need somebody that wants to trade up. So who do you want to trade up for? Like there's only a couple guys in this whole draft that you would trade up for. One of them is Jeremiah Love, maybe a Kenyon Sadiq if he starts to drop. Like I could see some of those things happen. So let's get into one of the divisions that we haven't addressed yet, and that's the NFC South. All right, we know the Atlanta Falcons don't have a first-round pick, right? We know that was given up for James Pierce Jr., who's in a lot of trouble right now for some off-the-field stuff, but did get 11 sacks as a rookie. What they saw is what he is when they traded with the Rams last year to go get him. Remember, they had drafted Jalen Walker, came back and drafted James Pierce, 2 edge rushers. And I think Jalen Walker is still going to be fine. But James Pierce was what you wanted. Big, long, fast, and he produced. I don't know what's going to happen, the future of James Pierce. Like, I don't know if he's going to get suspended. I don't know any of the police reports and all that stuff. But that was their first-round pick. If you go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that had won the division 5 years in a row and won a Super Bowl, they're sitting there at 15. Todd Bowles has changed offensive coordinators. Like, if you look at their team, they need pass rush. The guys that they have drafted have not panned out. The guys that they have signed in free agency, they have a hard time getting to the quarterback. Like, I think a guy like Akeem Mesidor out of Miami, if he's there at 15, I don't think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers would blink right now. If you think of all the guys that they have brought through there that have not worked out and have not panned out, I think that, Yaya Diaby looks like a pretty good player, and has played pretty good. But I feel like Mesidor is a guy at 15. If they could get a pass rusher like that, who's got size, he's got length, he played a lot of football at Miami. He was well coached by a Hall of Famer in Jason Taylor. I feel like Reuben Bain, will go before Akeem Mesidor. And let's just go. Let's go to the New Orleans Saints, because the New Orleans Saints are looking for the same thing. All right. The New Orleans Saints really developed last year. It was really a great performance by Tyler Shuck in the last 10 games of the season. The team looked different. They're building around Tyler Shuck. They had 8. They could easily, if Jordan Tyson was there, they could easily take Jordan Tyson. They have a need, and you want to build around Tyler Shuck. There are a lot of receivers in this draft. Basically, if you go through just the wide receiver template in this draft, every team, almost every college team, has 2 receivers that are in the draft. And so there's 50 draftable receivers in this draft. You don't have to, but Jordan Tyson looks pretty special. Now, he's got an injury history to him. So you have to factor that in. But, look, if Reuben Bain is there at 8, where the Saints are picking, he looks like Melvin Ingram. He looks like a lot of guys that were Melvin Ingram. Like, he looks like a guy that is, James Harrison. Like, some of the comps are legit. He's not very tall. Obviously, he's got arms that don't reach 31 inches. It didn't look like it affected him at all in college. Now, I know the NFL game is a big difference. It's a big jump. But if you watch the national championship game and you watch Reuben Bain, he's the best player on the field. He's everywhere. He played inside. He beat the offensive guard, at Indiana clean for a sack. He can play outside. He has a hot motor. He's got real power, at 270 pounds. Real power, and runs fast enough. Like, that's a legitimate edge rusher. in this draft. But the Saints could go wide receiver. They could go edge rusher. I don't think they're going to bring Cam Jordan back. He had a great season last year, as did Chase. Chase Young had a good season too. But if they don't bring Cam Jordan back, and he was, a first round pick in the 2011 draft. We're looking at his 16th year now. They could still sign him. He's unsigned, but I feel like this is a good spot to bring in a defensive end. Just as a guy personally who played a lot of games in the Superdome there in New Orleans, man, if you're playing with the lead in that place, and that place gets cranking, and the Who Dat Nation is rolling. I mean, if you're an offensive lineman, you can't hear a thing. I played a playoff game there when I was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we went down there and played a wild card game in 1992. And I played left guard, and Randall Cunningham was our quarterback. I was the left guard in that game. We won the game. I didn't hear one single snap count the whole day, and I'm right next to the quarterback. David Alexander was our center. Didn't hear a thing. I mean, pass rushers get an advantage, all right? There's a reason why they led the league. The year that Drew Brees won a Super Bowl, they led the league in takeaways that year, all right, when they beat the Colts. And a big part is just you can't hear. You can't hear in that building. I mean, defensive ends get a jump. All right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers, who won the division last year. And they are picking – Carolina is picking at 19. We have heard Dan Morgan, the general manager, come out this past week and say, what's wrong with picking a receiver 3 years in a row? Detroit Lions did it. It really didn't work out for him. Matt Millen did that 3 years in a row in Detroit. But let's just take a look at drafting Xavier Legette, drafting Tetaroya McMillan, okay? And he's saying, what's wrong with drafting a wide receiver or a receiver with the third 3 years in a row? Well, I think that receiver could very easily be Kenyon Sadiq. I think there's a need of tight end. They have continued to build around Bryce Young. He has improved steadily 3 years in a row. They won the division last year. Now, you could say they backed into it with a 8-9 record, whatever. That's fine. They played a home playoff game, and they gave the Rams trouble, all right, in that game. They beat the Rams earlier in the year. I think Kenyon Sadiq at 19 makes a lot of sense. Right there. They could also take a safety, a guy like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I think we're going to get 3 safeties drafted in the first round in this draft. So that would make sense too. But I feel like Kenyon Sadiq is there at 19. I feel like Carolina could draft a receiver 3 years in a row in the first round. However, I think teams that want or desire Kenyon Sadiq, and I think there's teams out there, possibly the Philadelphia Eagles, picking 4 picks behind Carolina at 23. I feel like that's a possibility where Philadelphia, if they get intel that Sadiq could still be there, I could feel like Howie Roseman could pick the phone and talk to Dan Morgan and maybe work out a deal. Because I think the Philadelphia Eagles don't have a tight end under contract next year. They've got to help out, I think, Jalen Hurts in the passing game. I feel like they're going to lose A.J. Brown. They need a weapon opposite Devontae Smith. Yes, they brought in Hollywood Brown, a bunch of guys. And they could draft a wide receiver. They brought in Dontavius Wicks. But I think Philadelphia will be snooping and looking to climb up. So Carolina might get the phone call if Sadiq is there. Or they might just be content saying, you know what, this is our guy. So, but he's one of the elite players in this draft at a position where there's only going to be one tight end drafted in the first round, and it's going to be Sadiq. All right, everybody, that's been the Best Football Show. I got to get upstairs and get on this show here. NFL Draft, baby. We'll be back here tomorrow morning talking about what happened in the first round. Look forward to talking to you about it. Thanks for joining me on the Best Football Show. Talk to you tomorrow, everybody. Enjoy night 1 of the NFL Draft.